Tēnā rawara e pā e tō mātai matua nui te rangi i te hōwia. Tau o whakamoe miti ka tikara hoki kōkoe kia whakamoe miti kia whakanui. Whakamoe miti whakawhētairawa, whakawhētairawa. Ai tā i hiuhi. Mene, ka piti hono ka tātai hono, ko rātau mātona no tēnā rātau. Kia whakanuia, kia whakahonorehia i ngā taonga tuku iho, i ngā āhuatanga katoa ka whakarite haere nei e rātau, i roto i te wā kia rātau. Ne, i roto i a e rā o ngā tū āhuatanga ka whakarite nei e rātau, kua tino tau nei te haere o tātou mātau, kua tino pai nei, waia haere nei tonu anō rā tātou mātau i te ao mani. Nō reira, whakamihia, whakanuia, whakawhētairawa hoki i a rātau. Rātau, kua mene atu, kua riro atu ki tio te ārai, o te mate ki te pō, uri, te pō, tango, ki roto ki te wāhi tonu ki a rātau. Te wāhi rā, whakatau iratia atu ai, ake atu anu ai ki a rātau. Ki roto ki tau wawa, no reira. Kia koutou rā, e te mate haere, whakaoti atu. Ka piti hono, ka tātai hono, ko tātou mātonu anu tēnei tātou. Ko te kānohi ora ki a tātou mātau kua hau nei tonu pou kawe i te kōrero anō ki a tātou i roto tēnei wā i runga i te Mākei i roto i tō tātou nā rohe wenua, rohe autati hai kōrero tonu nei ki a tātou mātau i roto tēnei wā tonu nei. Hara mai nau mai haere, tēnā rā tātou. Tēnā rā tātou. Mauri ora, kahuri, ai. So good to be back and talking around particulars and details within the Mākei. We're a lot clearer of things in the Mākei at the moment, and that's a really good thing. That's a really positive thing because we've been able to glean a lot more e Tatauma about exactly what's happening up there. Yeah, there is the split, but we also have e Tatauma a lot of government and a lot of crown. Those two entities with different roles, but one really is a servant of the other, and that's the government really is a servant of the crown. So what we have happening up there is a lot of pushing and shoving from Crown and the government up there for Ngapuhi to settle. Now Ngapuhi, actually, I take back some of my comments earlier that I made. They're doing a lot better up there. Even the group that is sort of whakaraputi nei i ngā kore ngā kaupapa whakahaere nei e Shane Jones mā. Even they, yeah, I think it's a bit more how we've always seen it up there. We've always seen things as not so kihau up there, and they're not because they're a lot more informed than we thought. But probably the split has been made to look a bit more, how can I put that, a bit less advantageous for us or beneficial for all of us than what seems the case. Okay, actually the split is a good thing. Shane Jones, they might not see that, but actually the split is a good thing. Because it falls in with what the people want up there. And what they want is for settlement to be held up there, and that's a good thing. We actually, though we're ready to settle, we actually see that as a good thing. But we started off wanting to settle immediately, was as quickly as we could under Ngapuhi. Yeah, we're sort of in two minds now, and then we decided, we wouldn't. We think Ngapuhi's being a lot wiser now than what seemed to be the case earlier. So, I don't know, maybe we might end up back in the group that agrees to settle under Ngapuhi, because we can be sort of satisfied that they would settle on an agreement that would encompass also the Tuturu. And that's what needs to be considered, and that's what's so good about things being held up there, and especially with that focus on the people. Just a few concerns up there, up in the MaakeiiKouMei with Ngapuhi, is that we've always come across this with Ngapuhi and with the North. Now that we're up there, you know, they've got to consider more. I know our people up there sometimes, they sort of miss out on hearing a lot of the up-to-date kōrero. Those of us that keep up to date with our kōrero, for instance, they're always going to be kept up to date about what's actually going on to the second. Okay? What's actually going on is very, very important to know. Some of our people miss out on that. So they're a bit, how can we put it? They make decisions that are a little bit off the pace. Yeah, that'll be a good way to put that. They're a bit off the pace, because if they would consider that Tuturu-wise, all of our Tuturutanga is now in the Motu. That's the same within the North. We spoke about earlier that the Tuturutanga of the North is now back in the North. Ngapuhi need to get back on board with that. We've mentioned several times over the last couple of months the senior ships are back in town. That's where all the Tuturutanga in the North is coming from. It's not coming from the Crown, and it's not coming from the government, and it's not coming from Ngapuhi. Okay, we must be clear about that. And as part of the most senior of the country, we are happy to deliver that kōrero for you. Ngapuhi does not represent the Tuturutanga of the North. As much as some of Ngapuhi might think that they do. Kai te he tēnā. Kai te he Ngapuhi. There are some other, I've written down a few notes from over the past week that, from things that have taken our interest in line with all of that sort of kōrero. Now, we disagree that ko Ngapuhi, that they say, ko tahi anō o ngā tūpuna tautiaki ai I tō tātou mātou tiriti. Te MaakeiiKouMei, kei te he tēnā. Kei te he tēnā. Ngapuhi needs to give up kōrero like that. Ngapuhi are one of the tautiaki. Ngapuhi are not the only tautiaki o te tiriti. Okay? A lot of Taina groups as independents in that time over 1840 when the Crown was working with divide and rule. If you can recall, they set up the Confederation of Chiefs. That was motivating. That was divide and rule. They were looking to divide and rule. That was the first thing that they did. That's why Ngapuhi got roped into everything up there, because they were working on divide and rule, and Ngapuhi got roped in. See? And that's why Ngapuhi today think they're the major, they're the primary tautiaki of Whakataunga, they're the primary. Kei te he tēnā. You know who the main tautiaki is the one who's there, that is in those documents. In te tiriti is Moai Hapu iwi, te awa Hapu iwi, Tahumaakaakanuimatua Hapu iwi. There's your major tautiaki. Yes, Ngapuhi is in there. Yes, Ngapuhi is in there. And some of the lands where Ngapuhi are, as well, not just Ngapuhi, let's remember that, not just Ngapuhi is in those lands, is certainly where those documents were formulated and signed up. Okay, we're not disagreeing with that. But we need for Ngapuhi to get their kōrero right, because we're all tautiaki of Te Tiriti in the north. Especially whilst we're all in the rohe aukati. Okay, whilst we're all in the rohe aukati, we may as well be well aware that te tautiaki tana o ngā taonga tuku iho, pēnā i tēnā i tēnā, i tēnā nā me tēnā, o he whakapitanga me te tiriti, kia tika huki rā tō tatau mātau whakaroa ke atu kia ua taonga. Kia tika rawa huki rā tō tatau mātau whakaroa ke atu. Kai te pai? Kia tika ke hoki rā i runga i te mea, tā runga te mea e tātauma Ngapuhi. Those are not just taonga to Ngapuhi. Okay, they're not just taonga to Ngapuhi. And even in the north, they're not just taonga to Ngapuhi. If you have gathered all your information, you've kohi ane, kōrero, tuku iho, te āhua nei, kai runga ki nei i tērā tū āhuatanga e kōrero tiana, kai roto tonu hoki i tērā tū āhuatanga kōrero ai. Kai pai tēnā, but I think if you look a little bit deeper into the details within your Rauimi kōrero, what you'll find in your sources is that there's a lot more to those sources. He mea āpiti atu, tāpiri atu, kia ua kōrero, hei pāni atu mā. Okay, you need to read wider. Haere ake atu tonu, ki te whānui ke ake atu o ngā kōrero e pā ke atu ana i aua taonga. Okay, because Ngapuhi are definitely, you will find, not the only tautiaki of He Whakapitanga and Te Tiriti. Okay, the words speak for themselves, the words within those makupu I roto te reo. They speak for themselves, and they don't just refer to Ngapuhi people. Okay, signatories are not just Ngapuhi. Okay, there are some that are noted in there as from within Ngapuhi uri or he tupuna Ngapuhi, te mea. But that doesn't mean to say kotahi anake, kotahi anō uri o ai watuna. Kai te pai? You need to read wider, read a lot deeper into the detail that you're reading into, and don't just stop short and say, ko Ngapuhi te mea, ko Ngapuhi te mea, ko Ngapuhi te mea, kai te pai tērā, wai hoa atu kia pēna, kai te he tēnā mahi. Kai te kai te he tino whai te titiro, he kunti nei te titiro o te tāngata pēnā ai. Te tāngata pēnā ai, he tāngata you know, you're just, if your people, you don't really know how to handle and work with taonga like that, you're likely to work quite narrowly and restrict everything to a very narrow space. And that's not good for those taonga or for everybody else. Ngapuhi are not the only group in the north, and there are 7 Hapu iwi in the north. Okay, that's the other part of things that we want to bring to the kōrero today within the update is where Ngapuhi, it might be a bit of a journey, so good that they're taking their time with settlement up there, the Ngapuhi, is they need to check out the statuses of their tupuna properly, just like I said, you need to do collectively with all the detail on those rauemi kōrero. Okay, same thing. Look at your own whakapapa. Te looking at tupuna. Luku atu nei ki roto ki ngā kōrero hoho nui pātua nane iau tupuna. And you'll see a lot broader and far more broadly and more literally what I'm talking about. Kōrero doesn't suddenly stop short. Yeah, kōrero doesn't suddenly stop short. He wāhi tonu o te kōrero. He taki wā tonu o te kōrero. He wā tonu o te kōrero, see? It's because kōrero, haere tonu ai, haere tonu ai, haere tonu ai. Okay, and I'm one of those people, brought up like that. So I know the nature of kōrero. And I can tell whether you know what you're talking about in this space. You know, we need to be very, very careful what we're saying. Like for Ngapuhi in the north, they're still saying they're an iwi, hapu, iwi, then prove it. Don't just show us all your people that are saying that they're Ngapuhi, show us that you are a hapu, iwi. That's no problems with us. But so far, all we've seen is kōrehe u te tārewa, kōrehe reo. Kōrehe whakamaori o te wairua o te reo. E tikana ki tā Ngapuhi e kōrero ai. See, that's all we've seen. Okay, there's no proof to what, basically that's what I just said there. There's no proof to what Ngapuhi is saying. Okay, you can't keep stating something that isn't an obvious truth or isn't an obvious fact. Okay, for something to be fact, there needs to be X amount of evidence behind it. And so far, we've had next to nothing from Ngapuhi. Amongst all the evidence Ngapuhi produces, we've looked through most of it. Okay, and for different reasons why some of the kōrero didn't continue to look through. And that's because we weren't getting what we need to get, and that's all the facts on what Ngapuhi says. Based, it's highly exemplary of what the Crown says. This is what the problem is. That's the biggest problem we have with Ngapuhi's kōrero at the moment. It's too exemplary of what the Crown says. And you know what the Crown says? Crock. They're a crock. The Crown is a crock. And that's part of the kōrero that we bring today. Yeah, I just wanted to introduce our kōrero in that way today because with a lot more detail, still with the same fiery passion, but with a lot more focus on the substance rather than talking around who's who in this space, blah, 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 and how are we doing in certain areas, blah, blah, blah. We need to focus on the substance up there, and the substance isn't matching up for Ngapuhi. And this way, kāroha mātou ki tērā. We've watched the battle of Ngapuhi in the north. You know what the main problem is up there? There's too much control of the Crown up there. I was happy to hear the Ngapuhi boss talk a little bit about that, because he's right. It's absolutely accurate that kōrero, too much control of the Crown, too much control of government, and that's an awesome thing to hear that he's got Ngapuhi actually holding on to what they want to do. The people of Ngapuhi want to hold back all settlement, and that's actually for them a very good idea. Because, some of what we want to bring today in the update, looking at the Tupuna, searching deeper and wider on the Tupuna, because we're pretty sure that what we've found isn't new. Just that most of Ngapuhi hasn't found that quite yet. Okay? We possibly have some people around us or amongst us too, in the north, amongst the Ngapuhi that are like that, and they sort of stop all little where it is. They come in, they put a stopper on it, and they try and make out that they know better, and they don't. Probably a lot of that going on up there. Probably a lot of focus on rauimi that aren't really giving us the whole of the kōrero, and we're not realising our work with those taonga. It's not correct, it's not appropriate, and so we're sort of holding them to a narrow space, and that's not good. That's not good either. We need to look wider, look broader, look deeper. And then what you'll find is a lot, because that's what we do all the time. We do that all the time. Because that's what's required in the space. If you really want to know what you're talking about, you need to do those things. And especially with very so they're very, very special, they're extraordinary, they're unique taonga. Okay? Not only that, they're in our deal. So we need to be very careful what we're saying, if you're Ngapuhi and you're part of our people, that deal's partly yours too. But you need to be careful. If Ngapuhi says, we want to see the proof. Because if te reo ngā kupu I roto i au a taonga pēnā no mātai, well, kai whea hoki mātai I roto tau kōrero anō I mea tanui honei e koutou I roto I au a taonga. Nā reira mahara tonu ake I e rā mea. What? Ai. Mahara tonu ake I e nā mea I roto I tau e kōrero ake ana nei. Tau e kōrero ake ana nei. Mehe mea ko taua kōrero tonu, ko Ngapuhi anō, no Ngapuhi anō, au a taonga, tēnā whakatakopuria mai tō rauimi kōrero, tautoko atua I tau kōrero. Don't just say things like that, and you don't really have the proof. You don't really have the evidence to back it up. Like any statement that we make, we make sure we got the goods to back those statements. Now we're not just he tangata kōrero. Mama nui ho tērā, mama nui ho tērā. To be a person that, got guts and confidence to talk about things, mama nui ho tērā mea. Okay, but we need to have the evidence and the supporting kōrero and the rauimi kōrero to back it all up. Okay? So that's the other thing we want to encourage Ngapuhi to do. The third, of course, the Taunahanaha. Now we know for a fact we have you're not going to have a safe settlement if you don't do these other two things that I just mentioned. Because that'll bring you more in line with the native title in the north, which is the original title of the original tribes of the north, which Ngapuhi isn't. Okay, of which Ngapuhi isn't. Awa isn't either. Okay? Teina ki hoki a awa. Teina hoki a Ngapuhi. Teina hoki a Tuahuoiie. Okay, so we've got to be very, very careful with those types of kōrero. Okay, although everything's it seems to be going a lot better up there in the Mākeiii than we might think. Okay? Okay, so that's the third thing, and those things are going to come up there in the update. Also, we talk around the Ngapuhi, the status of Ngapuhi. And this is why ka aroha hoki mātai ki a Ngapuhi. You know, for a long time we've seen them fight the battle up there. And it's been a tough go, you know, it's been a tough road to hoe for them. And they have fought hard and have come to probably, you know, if they harness all the good and the advantageousness, and they forget a lot of the past, where they were, and they look at very carefully where they are now, they're in the most advantageous space that they've ever been. That's, yeah, just a clue of where we're coming from, where our kōrero is. We actually want to try and support our people in the north, and it gets a bit hard to, especially when you get comments like that, you get statements like that. The problem is we don't get a lot of the evidence to back it all up. Okay? And when you've got kōrero like that, it's a little bit tough to work with, so we've got to try and work with what we can work with. And what we do know is that it's a lot more than what Ngapuhi says it is in the north. It's a lot more than what Tuhoe says. It's a lot more than what Awa says. Okay? And it's even a lot more than what Moriori says. Okay? But amongst the seniorships, I am not lying to you, but I think we've got this pretty much right. So please take our advice and try as hard as you can to follow our advice. It doesn't matter if it's a little wee bit different, what you do. If what you do is a Ngapuhi uri whānau uri waiting, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but we can't differ too much of what, you know, especially when your seniorships are mātai rawa mātai. Mātau rawa mātau ki te ao tūturu o ngā tūpuna ki te ao hōhats. You know, we can't help there. Mātau ranga hoki mātai. We're too experienced in te ao hōhats. You know, te Tuturutanga o mātai. We're far too experienced. Awa reo, kaireira tonu hoki. Okay? Argue against us, you know, we got no worries about that. Have your own independent say. But at the end of the day, you can't differ too much. You can't. Okay, we're too knowledgeable in these areas of our tupuna, the customary way of our tupuna, we're too onto there. Yeah, of our tupuna, we're too onto there. Okay, so you're always, at some point, you're going to struggle. A massive call by the leader there of the Ngapuhi to run with what the people want. He's not giving in to the Crown pressure or the government pressure. I think, yeah, and especially this government, you know, as we go along the kōrero and we look at the status of Ngapuhi, the difficulties that they're having up there. Yeah, a lot of that. Far and wide. You know, it's a funny thing because we have a huge difference, yet we've got a lot of the same problems. Within our Hapu, we've got a lot of the same problems, and it's probably a lot more marked in Tahumaakaakanuimatua than it actually is in Ngapuhi. They think they've got it bad in Ngapuhi. It's a lot worse in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. And the reason for that is because we were blocked right out. For years. Almost all of the last 2 centuries, Ngapuhi's been in it. See? For us, almost all the last 2 centuries, we haven't been anywhere. We never got anywhere until the last 27 years. Because some of us were able to hold on to kōrero right through our upbringing, right through our experiences in te reo, in te ao kōhatu o ngā tūpuna, you know. And luckily our experiences and our knowledge grew to such an extent that we were able to pick up and take from I te ki te pūtea I te tara whare. Mai I taua ke te I ngā ke te mātauranga o rātai o ngā tupuna. You know, so we were able to take those things, we pluck them right out of the kete and carry them on again. Just like how we started to do with Wahui Arau. All of the seniorships have been in on that, just like how we started to do with Whakataunga. Same thing for our Hapu iwi. And for all the seniorships, we started to take them all up again and run with them. Why? Because, you know, wha rite hoki mātai. Kai reira tonu hoki mātai, kai e rā tihi, kai e rā taumata. Ana kua rite, tino rite hoki mātai. Okay, so and we're just trying to guide you and help you along. No one's trying to force anyone to do anything, but you know, once you do find the actual substance solidify, in those areas you can't argue too much. There's not much legal room, okay? So to a degree you have to go along with that. Same with us. Same with us, with our Tuakana, we have to, you know, like I was saying in Wairara Patarua the other day, that, yeah, Tēnā Tuakana, when it comes to Tēnā Tuakana, you've got to know when to fold. Hey, you've got to know when to fold. Same thing with what I'm talking around now. It's got so much to do with Tēnā Tuakana. All of those items of substance that I'm talking about there, all those componentries and instruments. E rā Tuakana katoa no uatai nā taunga. You know, they count for just as much today as they did back in the time of our Tupuna. So we need to, we need to be careful about how we approach and how we work with those taonga, and that we make sure that we do fold when we need to fold. Hey, and we just, what I mean is that we accept. Ye tahiwa ngā huatanga o, kare huki ngā huatanga, e kōrero tiana ngā huatanga pēnā tonu ta tātau e whakaroa ke atine, ne? He rere ke tonu, you know? And we argue away at the different take that come out and the different whakaroa around certain taonga that we feel strongly about, we feel really strongly and passionate about. Okay? And but sometimes we come up against a much stronger and more substantial argument, and yeah, just sometimes you have to go along with, especially at our kohats, especially where Tuakana are concerned. We need to be careful. Pakeke, taipākeke, kukuia, kuroua, kaimātua, pahake, paiki, rangatira, you know, te katoa. We need to be careful. Ruahine, ruanuku, tohunga. You know, we need to be careful of those kōrero. Yeah, we can argue, for sure. For sure. I mean, the modern day, it's probably more correct to say that it's probably a time when we've argued more so than any other time in the modern day. And whether that's a good thing, I think time will tell whether that's a good thing. But certainly times have changed because we can argue things a lot more today. So do that. No one's saying don't, but to a degree, yeah, to a degree, we have to consider that Tuakana that know their stuff. Tuakana that are e momoho tonu no rātai, ki te wāhi tonu ki a rātai, you know, very successful in their space, and you get to know who those people are. you're good to follow them and look to their lead within a certain space, or their kōrero, to go along with that and support their kōrero. And just like any teina does in that position, ka compliment hai de e rātai aua kōrero, tūrukiruki hai de ne e rātai. Okay? That's, yeah. Pēnā hoki mātai o Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Yeah, pēnā tonu hoki mātai, we're like that. If in a situation, our tuakana definitely should be allowed to take lead in a certain area because they've got things right. If they've got things wrong, you've got to come down on them. Okay, you've got to have the strength to challenge them where they think that they're still right and they're wrong and it's too obvious. That's when you jump up and down. That's when you do your song and dance and haka even if you have to. Because sometimes tuakana just don't care. And those are bad tuakana. Those are tuakana you should never listen to. And those are tuakana that have, how can I put that, they've lost it, They've really lost grasp of the whole of reality of their situation and the situation that they've created for their teina. Okay? Those are not good ones to be folding to. They're ones that they haven't learned to fold. So, though they're tuakana, they haven't really learned to be teina. That's what their problem is. Okay? So we be careful of tuakana like that. But te mani, tuakana hoki rātai. Mā taungawa ki te wā hitoni ki a rātai. Yeah, best to follow them, eh? Best to support them and best to stick with them. Because they know their stuff. And so that's what we bring. That's what we bring the space and looking at the status there of the Ngapuhi. Yeah, it's in a very sad state. In fact, we saw a lot of that. We saw a lot of that through a lot of the raumi of Ngapuhi on the kōrero te mea. Okay, so there's a lot for them to ponder over. Hei whakaroa ke hoki marara for Ngapuhi. So yeah, that's in the update there. But we, on the other hand, are so ready to settle. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we actually look to settle in all three regions without fail. Whether we do that under or across the LNG, we don't know what we're going to do there yet. But we already know what settlement looks like for us in the north. Okay, so we'll talk a wee bit about some of those details for the north. And we're not that silly because we've got plenty of evidence, we've got plenty to go on. We can actually agree to settlement. And that's because of the position that we're in. In fact, all of the tuakana should be able to settle in the north. Okay, the north is one of those areas that we knew that once we locked in with the other tuakana and the other Hapu iwi in the north, that was it. That was all we needed to do. That was all we needed to be able to substantiate in the north. And so we will most likely at some point go for all three and settle all three. Okay, that's the Muri Whenua down to Kaitaia and the Pewhairangi, te Paparahi o te Raki, te Rukuroa, and Tāmaki Makaurau o Roko te Nukuroa. Okay, so we are already ready to settle all three. Why? Because we know we've got our stuff together for up there as well. We're not that silly. We're not that silly. Within Taunahanaha Wairua, we know the kōrero for up there, and we, I must mention that we talked about the whakatapu down there for Taunahanaha Wairua being programmed in for the 6th of May, which is not a Wednesday, that's a Monday. I checked it up, I thought, gee, did I get that day right? And I didn't. I got that day wrong. It's a Monday, midnight now. Yeah, we won't need to probably consider that anymore for Taunahanaha Wairua. Now, we know the nature of the hui going on in Taunahanaha Wairua, and we've got more kōrero on that now. And so we're far more familiar, far clearer about what's happening there. They're not rallying against us at all, actually rallying against the government. A lot of the issues are affecting kahungunu whānau right now, and they are still very much in support. There's no opposition to Tahumaakaakanuimatua settlement right through. So we're very happy. I'm very you know what? I'm quite proud. Yeah. Whew, I think we've achieved some of the most unbelievable, most remarkable milestones there. That's what we've got happening there in Taunahanaha Wairua. That's an unbelievable milestone. And with everything that's gone wrong there, you know, you have to feel aroha. You know, it's devastating looking at the place up there. So we can't very well. So we've put a stop on that, and we're not considering the whakatapu anymore for Taunahanaha Wairua. But one of the things we wanted to question for Taunahanaha Wairua, we'll probably question that once we get to their kōrero next week. Now, one of the things we want to question for Taunahanaha Wairua is how, they're calling for a unification within Taunahanaha Wairua. That's really, really good. And I think we've got the basis for that. We've got a tūturu basis for that. What's hard for us is because we move in tūturu fashion all the time. Ngā kōrero mātai, tūturu fashion all the time. Ngā huatanga ki a mātai haere, you know, and how we do things and how we go about things and how we move and the way that we move tūturu tonu hoki o mātai. Okay, so how do we take that into a unification call for? I know a lot of our people have gone to those, and that's fine, but how do we work in with groups that are still locked into Crown, you know, what a Crown sense of what that is? You know, do we fit in with their modern Crown, you know, they have their own sense of what it looks like, of what unity looks like. What unity looks like for us, he tūturu. No reira, kauru mai a kahu uri whanauri, ki raro tūhoki a mātai, ki roto waitaha rangi, ki tēnā o nā kaha, Tupuna, ki reira. I roto tō o nā whānau, tō kahununu nei whānau. No te mea rā hoki anu, kuia te tua whā o ngā uri, o ngā o ana Tuakana me te teina, ne? Wana Tuakana me te teina. Me mea he teina kai roto. Because we are very particular about things like that. You know, if we're calling for unity there, I think what an awesome call. What an awesome call, but how do we fit in with that? Perhaps if we go there, I don't know how our people are doing there, those who are at the moment. Perhaps they're just all going along with what's going on there because there's such a good kaupapa. You know, they're rallying against the government, which is a really good thing because it's a horrible government. I'm actually really upset with this government that they think that they have everything sus. I think they're more sus than actually sus. I think, a lot more needs to be asked of this government as to whether they actually really know what they're talking about. So I think they're trying to put on a show for us like they do, and actually they don't. Okay? And that's, from the leaderships down. I'm very disappointed in this government. So that's a good way to get to. But that's the only question we had. Is how do we fit in with the Tuturu unification that we follow? Because we know what that looks like in every way. What that looks like in Te Ao Kōhatu. How do we fit in with this modern way that Ngapuhi, that Kahunu always operates in that way? They call it Tuturu, and they try and match it up with Tuturutanga, but it never quite fits. And I've seen a lot of that of Kahunu, it never quite fits, and it's always quite strange. And they'll know what I'm talking about. Kahunu will know what I'm talking about, that it's never quite right. Even Te Reo's never quite right. You know, when you've got things like that, this is what I think they've woken up to, because a lot of our kōrero over the last 15 years has focused on areas like that, where they're missing the boat. And the reason that they're missing the boat is because he teina kehuki rātau. Teina kehuki. Tō rātau status e kōrero ne. Status e kōrero tiakena. This is why they have a lot of the problems that they do. Heuri noi ho no rātau. You know, they're not a niwi. They don't they don't match up to what a niwi is, what a hapu iwi is. See, why? Because they haven't got those strengths. Why? Because they've never been one. Okay, so those are other things that we need to be careful of and aware of within Ngapuhi. That's why we're bringing a lot of those things today for the Mākei, so we can try and get those things right, especially whilst we're pondering on how far away settlement might be, or consideration of that might be. Perhaps it's a fair way away from Ngapuhi, and I'm not too sure how far we're prepared to wait. I've got a funny feeling that Tahumaakaakanuimatua, te awa, Moai Hapu iwi aroha mai. I think we're probably going to end up settling a lot sooner rather than later. Why? Because we've got our stuff together. Why? Because we know our stuff, and we're trying to provide as much as we can to help others, in the hope that they might see that and I'm not lying to you, but Ngapuhi is in the most advantageous position that they've ever been in. And we're not talking because of settlement, but we're talking about because of everything else. And I think they're right to get ready for that and work towards that. I think they're right. Because if they harness everything they've got at their disposal right now into Ngapuhi, the Ngapuhi of tomorrow will be so very strong and so much stronger than they've ever been. And while they're on that path, they might as well keep advancing and keep pushing forward. Keep looking to improve things especially the status of things for them. And I don't blame the leaderships for looking hard at things like that, at areas like that. We've done a lot of that. And we're appalled. We're appalled. We're you know, it's a wonder we've even made it this far. I look at, though, how quickly we've grown, and it's probably down to our establishments long before our leaderships came together to take hold of everything. Because our establishments were so powerfully put together that, you know, we, and, you know, all native speakers out there and people experienced in Tahumaakaakanuimatua and of the knowledge to be able to carry things and take things forward for Tahumaakaakanuimatua in such a way that we have been able to get to this point really quickly. And so, yeah, in trying to assist Ngapuhi, it's not just Ngapuhi though in the north. There are probably others that we're not mentioning at the moment. And I can't think of too many at the moment. I don't know, perhaps Moriori might be looking to meet more with us, maybe not. But we always meet with Moai Hapu Iwi. We are very close with Moai and Tawa, Tuturutanga. You know, all those major groups that we're a part of, we're a big part of. We keep up communications and we make sure that we know exactly what we're doing and what the future looks like for us, for our people, for our tamariki, for our mokopuna. And we stay focused on exactly what we want to achieve. Now, yeah, we understand that that would be something similar to what Ngapuhi is trying to achieve as well, which is really good to hear about. But how can we assist that? I think it best that we just carry on through and we supply our kōrero publicly and we continue to supply that in the hope that somewhere in there, hopefully there's some gems in there that can assist our other people in the north. And we all get on track, because at some point we have to. I understand that throughout the mutu, things are quite disunited. Actually, at the moment, the reality is that things are quite disunited. And we're one iwi, we're hapu iwi, we don't like that. We don't like that. Okay? Having to work in disarray and disunity. Okay, that's not Tuturu. That's not Tuturu. For us all to be going in different directions, we all think that you know, at some point we need to fold. Okay? And that's probably a message for some of us out there. Probably not Ngapuhi, because I think Ngapuhi's onto it. I think they're more onto it than we might think. Okay? But some of us might need to learn to fold. Okay? Because if this unity carries on, then this crown embodiment, well, I don't know that they can, but they might find a way that for some of us, you know, there might be worse days ahead, stuck under the crown. Okay? Because I think for some of us, we're too brainwashed by the crown. A lot of our beliefs follow the colonization tools of the crown and exactly what's come out of the colonization of the crown over our people. Okay, so we need to be careful of those things. But traditional unity is one of our major drivers. You know, in every traditional way, that's what we work for. This is why we've been talking around these things. God first. We've been talking about, like anyone will think I was a great preacher or anything, or a priest or something like kare. I'm none of that. You know, I'm just bringing you a lot of those kōrero that is highly priority and critical and vital for us in our major aims and the major targets, the major goals that we carry. This is what we carry with us every day. These are the strategies we work with. Okay? Because we know you know, when the new generations take over. Okay, when their time comes. You know, these are the taonga. Okay, these are the taonga that will, just like how they are for us at the moment, in the present time, they will be the main drivers for them. And perhaps in those times, they'll find more new things to carry them through. You know, we've got to be aware that generations, the world changes. Okay, and so they will associate that and look to make change and adapt in the best ways that they that they in that time know how. Okay, in the best ways. So yeah, I'm pretty much getting on to our next kaupapa, which are the Hapu ure tārewa te reo, the Hapu ure tārewa whānauri te reo. In the north, we still need to talk te reo, because it's a big issue. For the Ngapuhi, yeah, it's huge, that issue, because they really need to tackle that issue, and I think that's one of the areas that Ngapuhi absolutely falls down. You know why? Because they keep sticking to this one deal. You know, they need to let that go. That's not helping. It's not helping Ngapuhi. And they keep trying to stick to what is Hapu iwi to them. To them, well, what might be Hapu iwi to them is not the substantiated Hapu iwi of the katoa ngā Hapu iwi, that know that they are Hapu iwi. Okay, so again, we're back into that situation where we need to, in that situation where we've started to adopt whakaaro like that and kaupapa like that, then we need to have to, you know, at some point we've got to fold. Okay, we've got to learn that. At some point we've got to fold and admit, hey, kare o tātou ure tārewa, ara tarau I te Hapu iwi. You know, we need to say that, and we need to say it clearly. That we've got all these people, te nui ngā, ara, he moe me rangatira ki ko, he moe me ariki ki ko, he moe me Tuakana ki ko. And we need to bring all those into the argument and say to ourselves, eta, he tonu hoki tātai. He tonu hoki tātai koa. You know, we need to say that clearly and realize that when we do that, we move forward. We move forward. Not just powerfully, but probably generations before our time. Okay, because when you make decisions like that, they're groundbreaking decisions. When you understand that you are in the wrong and you take up the responsibility to get it right, that's the step into the future and to future success that you're looking for, and advancement, all those sorts of changes that need to happen for some of our groups, not just Ngapuhi, okay? Kahunu Rangitane have just been through the same journey. They've had a similar journey, okay? Within the Hapu Utarewa Whanauri, we've got Uri Whanauri within that, in that kōrero today. Within the that kōrero there, there's the traditional unity again. But again, we can't sort of get it right in the north until we get it right, what that really looks like. And some of that is what we've been talking about today, from Tuakana to Tēnā. That's where it needs to happen, first and foremost. I roto te tika, I roto te tikanga me te kawa. You know, once you have that, then nothing will go wrong for you. Traditional unity happens just like that. Why? Because we don't even have to think about it. We don't even have to say, hey, e tātou mā, he hui, ka kotahi ai tātou, tō pū ai tātou. We don't have to say that. Why? Because we come together naturally, because we know te tika me te tikanga me te kawa. We know the tikanga to follow. We know exactly who we are and where we're going, what we're doing. Okay? We don't have to call for hui, for unity and things like that. We shouldn't have to. Why? Because our modes of moving, our movements, our practices, our organisation as people, ka riro ati roto ki e rātu Whakataunga kōrero ne. Ngā mea kotahi anō, tō pū anō, ia tātou, I roto te mea. You know, these are the things we need to be well aware of. And that's what we work with. We try to work hard to get people, you know, working within those taonga tikui ho as well. And we need to focus more on that. Because our tupuna were stringent about those sorts of things. You couldn't break the law. And you couldn't do that. I mean, look at some of the, gosh, I would have hated to be hit by some of the karakia you can get hit by, you know? And some of the things, that people do wrong today, mate, you can lose your life just like that. Just in a split second, you're gone. Okay, and that's all it takes, a split second. Okay, and that was the law. But everything was done lawfully. It wasn't done in the dark. We don't deal like that with law. Okay, we don't work like that. Okay, and so within those traditional aspects and concepts, that's what we work with. And we decided to add a lot of that to our kōrero so that you know more. So it's not just about me moaning about all this stuff and me being passionate about all this stuff, and that you actually see what we're trying to achieve. And then we do have success in there. You know, don't get me wrong, we do have success. But total success, we're still looking for that. We're still looking for that. Okay, and at the moment, it's a very tough ask in the north. Starting to come together in Hawke's Bay Wairua, starting to come together in Maitarapatararua very, very well. So we're quite proud. Quite proud of our people, but we, still a long way to go and still a lot of work to do. Okay? And okay, I'll just make mention now, a quick mention of some of the things, some of the ways that we're working in there with the authority and mana that Westminster has within everything that we do. Our native title supported by Westminster. That's who, with the Queen. The TRT was signed, and that was a partnership, a deal, a contract made with the Queen. That's where a lot of our power is coming from and our authority, as well from within those alliances, those old alliances. The Tuakana hold true to all those alliances, because that's where our ability to bring about Ngapuhi in 1815 came from those alliances. And we had a far better way of moving forward rather than this, heartless group calling themselves the Crown. And who they are really is the New Zealand Crown Corporation. That's who they are. They've got no authority over us. But we know they have authority over a lot of other groups. And depending on which way those groups go, those groups can be stuck forever under that Crown embodiment of what they call the Crown. We don't call them the Crown at all. We see them as they're really just a corporation to us. Yeah. The New Zealand Crown Corporation, that's all that they are. And they're not world class, not to us. They're not world class. But they're definitely a figure within the space, and we need to work with them. Fine, we've got no worries with that, but we only take it to a degree. Okay? I think now more than ever, they know where we hold true to our alliances with Westminster, and that's direct. And right through all the alliances they've built, right down to Whakataunga, which was with the King, right down to the TRT, even though we didn't sign that. One of the statements I made in my last call was that we were very, very smart not to sign the TRT. Now, a lot of people got confused about that, because previous statements of mine were that the groups that did sign the TRT, very, very smart, very, very smart move, and that's because it was. But for us not to sign it was a real smart move, because they didn't commit us to something that later on, like for today, we would have lost out more on rather than gained how we've gained today. So we made a very, very smart move. Whether our Tupuna saw that back then, we don't know. But that's how things have worked out for us. A very, very smart move for us not to sign the TRT. Okay, so it's worked out really, really well. So there's a lot of that kōrero going to come into there. Unification is a big thing. And we all need that. And the reality is how things are looking is not good. It's not good for our Hapu iwi, and it's not good for our Teina or our Tuakana. Very, very disunified. The results of that, the consequences of that, the way all of that has eventuated to us. There seems to be a lot more to learn in there by some Tuakana and some Teina. A lot more to learn in there. Okay, and that is why we're held up by a lot of inexperience, a lot of selfishness sometimes. Though I hate to say it, gangs are involved in there. Some of our Tuakana are too tied up in gangs, so they can't really lead in the way that Tuakana should sometimes. Yeah, they're too tied up into gangs, or they're too like what we've said down in Wairarapa sometimes, and they have Tūhoe, people like Tūhoe, recolonised. Okay, they've done a lot of that in Wairarapa here Taunga Wairua. And it's been disgusting, the results of that. It sounds like to me, personally, they got a lot more to learn in Tūhoe than they ever thought. Okay? And again, there's an example of another tribe that didn't realise their status, and a lot of the problems that they have, just like Kahungunu-Rangitane, a lot of their problems that they've had to date have been because they know their true status, their true mana, their true authority, their tuturu mana and tuturu authority. Why? Because they were depending on this mana pōhewa of the crown. And this is what we dislike the most about the crown. Pōhewa toru hoki. Pōhewa. The status of the crown. This is why the crown actually is the problem with our country. We've there's far too many examples of that for us to, that'll be a terrible thing to try to deny that particular fact. But that is the fact. I mean, the problem isn't even the kings. They've just become part of it. Okay? Why? Because the kings, they're not coping. They're just not coping with the pressures that the situation that we have has put onto us as people. So the gangs are struggling a lot out there. We see some of the reasons for that in the oranga tamariki and all that sort of thing, the state wards and all that sort of thing. We see some of the reasons, but we're pretty sure there's a lot more. So we need to, be well aware that a lot of what we don't know may really be the problem with how we're not going so well. Okay, so there's another reason for Tūhoe. The reason that they're not doing so well is because they never knew their proper status. They never took a check, took a stock on them, and looked closely at who they really are and where they've really come from and the authority that they hold. In the motu and within their own lands. Okay? We think a lot of Tūhoe lands are actually Moriori lands. We think a lot of the lands of Awa as well are also Moriori. We have some lands within those as well. Tahumaakaakanuimatua claims right through all those areas. Okay. We're not silly. We're not silly because we know where our people are, and especially amongst the seniors, we tend to know each other pretty well. We know each other pretty well, and I think we're going to do really well. The future for the seniorships right down to Moriori is looking good. Hopefully the Tina, Hapu, Iwi, look more so to the advantageousness of what we bring the space as the Tuakana of the Motu, a lot more, rather than going off on their own thinking that they got a sus or anything like that. We don't think they have, and especially if they're looking to wander off from their seniorships. There's a problem with that, especially if the seniorships have it together. It'd be a bit different if we were senior ships that didn't have it together. There would be a whole different scenario where probably those Taina groups would probably be right to go that way. Okay, otherwise, really, the mea tuturu, they should try to unify. Okay? Different if we were groups that we didn't have it together. That's kaitihi tēnā. From Moai down to Moriori, we have it pretty much together. Okay, we just are hoping that it's more of an example as we move along, that we become more of an example for our tēnā. Whenua at the moment, well, aroha mai, but we think we're doing the best that we can, and we know that we have things together the best as we can, and we know our stuff well enough to know that we can carry well into the future exactly what we bring. Te ao kōhatu as well. Te ao tūturu o ngā Tupuna, what we bring today in this day and age, and how we have adapted to this day and age. Reconnecting with all our Tuakana of the past, of ancient times as well. That's a big thing. We're still trying to do that. We're still trying to get through that. So, but already, you know, the amazing satisfaction and contentment that we're getting from that. We know for a fact, for a lot of our Tupuna, that was always one of the great aspirations and hopes, never talked about much until probably around the 1890s, moving into the 1900s. Okay? So, we move into there, we move into traditional unity, and then paipera, and we're going to finish off with te kura ia waru. E tatama paipera kuroutu, we have 3 literal devices left. And those literal devices are similes, metaphors, and wordplay. Those are the only 3 that we have left. There are no more literary forms left utilised in the Bible. So, and then we go out on te kura ia waru. Now, te kura ia waru in the north, yes, that's a biggie for us. It may get up earlier than we think, but at the moment we can't see the northern one getting up anytime within the next 3 years. But we do know that somewhere within the vicinity of 4 of our establishments of the institution of te kura ia waru in the country will probably be up, will started on and establishing within the motu over the next 2 to 3 years. Okay, that's a biggie for us. So yeah, I'm not surprised that te kura ia waru, which is one of the major aims, it'll secure down, if you haven't got all the kōrero that we've brought into the space over the last 15 years, you'll soon get it just walking into te kura ia waru. Kairiro nā ia koe. Ia koe nā ngā kōrero katoa. E ne kōrero katoa, kairiro tonu. Kairiro tonu kia koe. Okay, so we need to be aware of those sorts of things, and also e tātou mā, things are moving along quite quickly today, and we need to also be aware that a lot of the teachings of, in fact, all of the teachings of te kura ia waru will bring back all of the old way, the old kōhatu, as upheld and held within te kura ia waru, which will help you realise a lot of the things that probably you haven't really ever known. Even a lot of us that think that we know te ao kōhatu, what I've noticed right through the years, right over the years, even a lot of our old people. Kare hoki rā tau I te tino mātau rawa I ngā mea nei, I ngā āhuatanga o te kōrero, I ngā kōrero, I ngā āhuatanga o te mea I roto te ao kōhatu. There's, yeah, sometimes over the years we get to adopt a certain way that we think is the way that's carried on through this particular modern time that actually didn't come from te ao kōhatu, it came from a modern time. Okay? And there's a lot of those sorts of practices around and we need to be aware of that. Well, te kura I warua will help you straight away. Get to know te ao kōhatu as it is. Okay? And why we can move into God first as a hapu iwi. Why we can do things in some of the ways that we do and still be te ao kōhatu. We have a knack of doing that within Tahumaakaakanuimatua. We've sort of, you know, in the modern day, we've been able to bring te ao kōhatu to people without being able, without how can I put it? Without disgracing, you know, we've got a lot of grace in that area, the way that we move gracefully within that world, because we know it so well. And even some of the things, some people look at us, they go, you know, hara tērā I te mea tutu, you know, they look at us and they think, you know, like, for God first, how we've adopted that. And I think probably up to now, since we first announced that, they've probably pretty much changed their mind. Kare kanui te tika, kare mātau I te takatakahi I ngā taonga o kui mā o koroma. Kare ka. Kare ka. You know, so in many ways we're enhancing them, and that's what we do. That's why we always look so good in that way. We learnt that practice, that modern practice of how to enhance those taonga. We take those taonga as they are, but how we use them or how we close them down or whatever we do with them, it's what we do with those taonga that tells you how te ao kōhatu you are, you really are. And if you use it in a way that, you know, he takatakahi, ki runga ki te tangata, ki runga ki awai, ki te aha, ki te mea, you know, then big problems there. Big problems there. Because our Tupuna didn't move in that way. They were very graceful people. They knew their world. Like I said, they were perfect. I've always said they were perfect for that world. Okay? And for us, this is part of a journey of trying to be perfect for that world in the modern day and continuing to advance and grow that in our modern world. And that's real hard to do. But I think we're making some really good moves and we're making some really good progress. And we've got the support, you know, groups like Kohuiaro, our military bases right across the world. You know, we've got 70 of them. Some of the big kaupapa happening in the world today, we should be playing more of an active role within those. Because a lot of that affects our people and our world. Now, we're all in trouble right now. If Hamas and Iran take over Western Asia, we're all in trouble. Okay? Things like that. What of the future of our tamariki? What of the future of our mokopuna if groups like this take over? Those are the questions I ask. And I'm so grateful that a lot of our media are being knocked out of the way. You know why? Because a lot of the media coverage of a lot of the things that our people have been involved in, like protests. They were so badly covered, it's not funny. Protests got all the bad press, and everyone else got the good press. Not good. Not good when Profess was actually doing good for so many hundreds of thousands of people. That's what they were trying to achieve. Okay, it might not have been perfectly run, but what is? Was the government running perfectly at that time? Were the police acting perfectly at that time? No. No, a lot of mistakes were made. So it wasn't just Profess. And just like the evil of the media can be, you know, all of the evil that they're told about Israel and Netanyahu right throughout the world. How evil can they be? They're actually lying to everyone and saying to the world that these people are war criminals and they're killing off innocent Palestinians. That's not true. That's not true. The Hamas have control of Palestine. That's what's happening over there. It's the Hamas that's causing all the deaths over there. Okay, and who controls Hamas? Iran. The Medo-Persians. So, yeah, our military bases, our military people, our tests should be playing a bigger role in wars like that and supporting our whanaunga in Israel and Palestine. They could play a role on both sides. Because the Hamas are actually what's causing all the deaths over there amongst the Palestinians. Okay? Yeah. So big problems in the world. And this is why people are waiting for a world war to start. Because if Iran and the Hamas get control over there and they actually defeat Israel, which I don't think is possible. I don't think that's possible. I think Israel are far too strong for either of those groups. What they need to watch is the way that the proxies move. And, yeah, I don't blame Israel for, you know, they're very critical of the US support there. The US is a little bit reluctant. You know, they haven't really got enough guts to me. I mean, they haven't got the guts to move in with it. You know, if our soldiers were over there with Israel, they'd move in. They'd move in with Israel. Our soldiers are that gutsy. Okay, and we know the heritage of tests, and we know the heritage of our military bases right throughout the world. See, so we should be playing a bigger role in things like that at the moment, and we're not. But we're starting to move in that direction. Around Pacifica, Southern Pacific, the areas of our Tongan brothers and sisters and Samoan brothers and sisters, Southern Asia there. We're more Northern Asia, and we time with Tonga and Samoa, blah, blah, blah. Then we move into Pacifica. And also there's our Mayan Indian roots within those areas from throughout Tonga and Samoa. Moving into America, Southern and Latin America as well. Okay? So there's all our ties into those lands. Hawaii, the Hawaiian connection, Western Samoa, the Western Samoan connection, especially for us in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. So we're as senior ships, we've got a lot of those kaupapa on our plate as well. And we can't turn a blind eye to things like that. There are whanaunga, both Palestinians and Israelites. They're all our people. Okay, so, big kaupapa, big kaupapa. But, yeah, I think I made myself pretty clear there in the update. Although we're pretty much trying to get organised around what Ngapuhi is doing and what we want to do as a result of what Ngapuhi is doing, I I think I would be right, and sooner rather than later, we would look to settle in all three areas of the north. If I was to put a time limit on that, perhaps one of them we might do this year, one of them, or two. But the third might take perhaps the next couple of years. But we certainly would move earlier than Ngapuhi probably would move. Yeah, and that's a bit tough for us to move into, but we would do that. I think we would do that. That's how gutsy we are. We can move like that. Because to be honest, we would rather settle under the northerners, with our northern whanaunga LNG. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that, under the northerners, because we are northerners, but under the northern groups that are LNG up there. Why? Because we know they're far better informed. They're far more to do than what we've had to deal with down here. Perhaps we present too much of a challenge for some of them. And that's not what we're trying to do, though. Whether they're challenged by our seniorships and the authority and the way we move, we're pretty sure we've been as graceful as we need to be. So they shouldn't be challenged. We're one and the same all. He whanaunga tonu, Moteo, ki te Maakei. Whanaunga tonu hoki, katoa hoki Moteo. Katoa hoki Moteo. Tātou Moteo, I te Maakei. You know, we're all whanaunga out there. We shouldn't be challenged by that. Seniorships should present a strong argument and have that fully supported. If you're a seniorship and you don't do that, then you've got big problems. Okay, if you're challenged by that, well, maybe you should be. Maybe you should be, especially if it's fully supported. And so, if you're a teina, then you're in a position where at some point you need to fold in some areas. Okay? Not everything. I mean, where Ngapuhi is concerned, you still have Ngapuhi tanga. Doesn't matter whether you're Hapu iwi, doesn't matter whether you're uri whānauri. He Ngapuhi tanga tonu kei reira. He Tuturutanga, you have this huge heritage of some of the most powerful Tupuna in the north. Be you uri whānauri or not. But I doubt that Ngapuhi is ever going to reach the status of any of the Hapu iwi in the north, because I don't think Ngapuhi is Hapu iwi. Okay? I don't think we've got that wrong. And that's why we have a lot of the troubles that we do. A lot of the tribes in the space, if you have a good look through them, a lot of the problems they have is because their status is lower than what they think. No use. People around the mutu going, oh, iwi no mātou, iwi, te mea. Everyone going on that they're all iwi. Well, show us. Show us the proof. Okay? Be an iwi. Be a hapu iwi. Don't just māmanoi ho te kōrero. Te kōrero a waha tonu I te waha. Aki te waha tonu. Māmanoi ho tēnā. Now, it's easy to talk about stuff, but can you do it? Can you show us? Kai whea te hapu iwi, o koutou, oi anu e koutou tia ake anana, e koutou ake atua anana, e koutou ana, ko koutou anu hoki tērā, hapu iwi tonu tērā. Hapu iwi tonu anu koutou. Okay? Show us. Don't just talk about it. And if you can't show us, then maybe, just maybe, it's time to fold on some things. Okay? Just trying to be helpful, not trying to be better than anybody else, and we've never tried to do that. Okay? And even now we're still not trying to do that. But we're trying to do our job, just like you're always trying to do your job as Taina. We're always trying to do our job as Tuakana. And we do very, very well. It just happens to be that we do that very, very well. That's all. Okay, so hopefully that's a good example for you. But that's what we're likely to do. We're likely to commit to settlement a lot sooner. And if that has to be without the LNG, which would be sad to us, because we think the LNG's in the area, even though we think they might have some things wrong. And whichever way they want to do things, I think if we can be, because I think for myself, because they're more informed, for me personally, and because of the way that they're doing things up there, for me personally, they have more of a hold on the Tuturutanga than you might think. See? The Tuturutanga of the north is pretty safer than you might think. So they'd be a safe bet. You know, we'd settle happily under them. Okay, why? Because we know we're always going to have what is Tuturu ours. There's no risk there. And not like Whakataunga, you know what? We've never been able to settle under them. Okay, and now we've got settlement absolutely solidified and concluded for us. Now they have to settle under us. They can't argue that. We have total power even across the crown. Okay? Yeah. But I think Ngapuhi is pretty formidable. I just don't think that they're beyond Whanaudi. I don't think they are. Okay, and we will see that specifically if they start to make the moves that we're suggesting they need to. And that is those moves into, you know, the intermarriages with Mamoe, the intermarriages with Moteo, the intermarriages with Tahumaakaakanuimatua. Once we start adhering to those and seeing where these Hapu iwi are within Ngapuhi and where their lands are within what Ngapuhi calls Ngapuhi, they might start to question themselves and say, oh look, perhaps we're not the Hapu iwi we once thought we were. These Hapu iwi, obviously they have far greater mana, they are Tuakana, and they have native title. The originals to these lands have native title. That's what you call that. Taunahanaha Tupuna, Taunahanaha Wenua is native title. That's original title. That's what that's saying to the land. So anywhere we claim, the priority title. Okay? But that doesn't say that Ngapuhi isn't in there. Ngapuhi is still in there. Okay? They're just not of the status in there that they thought they were before. Because we are in there. We are the priority status in there. Why? Because we hold native title. Why? Because it's too obvious. We've been in these lands over 1,000 years. We are the ones who have been in these lands 1,000 years and more. Okay? Ngapuhi can only go back to 1350 or roundabouts. Awa is the same. Tuwe are the same. Okay? All right. Now, without going on about all of the gory details of the status of Ngapuhi people, we know the difficulties that Hapu iwi have faced as a result of colonisation and the takeover of the New Zealand Crown Corporation, something that we've stated to them in papers. We actually do believe, for Wairarapa actually, that if we have to bring in the general of the British military that he will actually, if he has to come and deal with people who are non-compliant to the orders, we've served the orders, we've actually done that. We've served the orders, and if they do not comply, and that general has to come in, we understand that the bosses, that because they have no rights, they can actually be removed from lands where they don't have a right on those lands, any of these people. They can actually be physically removed, taken out of there. Okay, but I think the first thing that this general will do is actually he will lock up the leaderships of each of those groups. That's including the Crown. That's including the Crown. The leadership of the Crown will go to jail, and he can do that immediately. Okay, that's what I think is going to happen first. Okay, so just a little bit of an update there as well. Now, the Hapu ure tārewa whānauri, the uri whānauri as well in the north. Yeah, we have a little bit more on reo to talk about up there, especially where the reo of, I forgot to mention with the reo of Tuturutanga, the Hapu ure tārewa whānauri within Te Awa. That is the top of our Manei, the top of our ure tārewa. Our number one ure tārewa, our most senior one, which is Tuturutanga. Now their reo is the wha becomes wa, and ni becomes ni. So there's a drop of the G and wa. Within Te Awa, ni becomes ni, and fe becomes we. Okay. Oh, sorry. Within sorry, I'm getting confused with the Te Awa reo as well for TeReoTuturu. Sorry, for TeReoTuturu. Na in A becomes na in GA. Sorry, that's the added G. I always forget that one. The added G. It's TeReoTuturu. Okay, so we needed to mention that for the reo up there. Aroha mai, e tātou mā, we still cannot release te reo, at least for Whatua and Te Arawa and groups like that. We already know the mōreo reo. Okay, so there's no real difficulties with any of that, but we still can't release the reo of Tahu Pōtiki. We still can't release Te Arawa. We still can't release Waitahanui. Okay, we do have probably very soon coming up the reo of Waitaha Ariki coming up. We do also have in check at the moment is Tahumaakaakanuimatua, their reo, and the reo of Kahu as well. We're fairly certain that the reo they try to say is Rangitane today, that is Kau. We're fairly certain, but we haven't released that yet. They're going to come up very soon. Because we're a lot more sure of which of the reo is actually Rangitane. Okay, a lot of it's to do with connections as well. Again, you have to go wider. Again, you have to go more in depth. Again, you have to know the order of concepts. You have to know whakapapa. Okay, all those concepts have whakapapa too. And sometimes we just get it wrong because we think, oh, te mea. And because your tupuna use that reo most often over a certain period, that's still not enough. So you've got to go wider, you've got to go broader, you've got to go more lateral even sometimes, and deeper to really find that certainty about what it is you've found. Okay, so we can't release those yet. But yeah, Tahumaakaakanuimatua is pretty close, and Kahu as well. All right, but they started in the north. They actually ended up in the east and the west. Okay, they didn't end up in the south, but they went into the east and the west. Amazing, eh? What the Muscat Wars did to our people, threw us all over the place. All over the place. There was a lot of disarray in the country, and a lot of that happened due to the lawlessness of our migrants. The first lot of Pākehā into the country weren't great people. They were very lawless people. And we always knew, our Tupuna always knew there was going to be big problems. What I dislike was that what they brought was an attractiveness that our Tupuna wanted. Okay, they were attracted to the industry, and they were attracted to the technology and the culture that Great Britain brought our country. But I just like that. I just like that we were so attracted to that, because though it did us good, it brought us a huge price. We had to pay a huge price for all of that. And though it set us, I guess one day we'll probably end up saying one day that that it was all worth it. But at the moment, I dislike the price that we've paid. We've paid a huge price, you know, and getting to 1960, 61, when we're almost extinct as a people. And that's not so long ago, e Tauma. That's not so long ago. 1960, 61. Wow. We're not here. Hey, let's just imagine for a moment there. Let's hold up for a moment there and think about Tahumaakaakanuimatua in 60, 61. Not only we heard of over that time, but we may not have ever come back. Okay, so we need to think a bit deeper and a bit broader and with a bit more laterality of mind sometimes over things, especially in this space. You need to. Don't just, cut short somewhere. Don't just cut short. No te mea rahu ki te kōrero, waiho kia haere tonu. Yeah. Waiho tonu kia haere tonu. And that's good for kōrero. It's a practice I've always had. I've always, especially where I've been, even in my teaching days, with my own whānau, my own kids, I've always got tukuna te kōrero kia rere. And I don't, we never chop it. We never stop kōrero in a narrow place. We let it go. And, especially in TeReoMatua. In TeReoMatua, the old way of operation of TeReoMatua is like that. He reo kōrero, he tino reo kōrero tēnā. You know? And hei reo kōrero tonu I nei rā ki ngā tamariki, ki ngā mokopuna. Okay? So we good practice to get into. It's what we do in Tahumaakaakanuimatua. That's our way. We allow our kids to even get to kōrero. You know? Wai hoa atu kia pērā. Wai hoa atu kia pērā. How else are they going to learn? You know? Sometimes some of our people, we get too afraid to allow our tamariki into certain spaces. You get to know the spaces that they shouldn't be in. Yeah. So all these other spaces must be okay. A lot of different people, like when you're talking about, if I could give you an example, te taumata kōrero. some people were a little bit afraid of me because, no te mea rahuki I te taumata kōrero. The same taumata kōrero, I'd even have my sons on there, my nephews on there. And some people were very critical of that. And I said to them, well, what's wrong with that? I said, well, in Tahumaakaakanuimatua, that's our practice. That's how we do it. You know where I'm sitting? I said to them, where I'm sitting? I always sit in the last kōrero. I said, that's my kōrero there. I can't be in 5 places at once. They say, yeah, but you're on the same taumata kōrero. I said, that's fine. We're still not on the same space. When we occupy those different kōrero spaces, we're in a different space still, even though we're on the same taumata kōrero. Do you understand me? They would never take the last kōrero. That's mine. Okay, and then they understood. And, it just depends what your knowledge is of these things, and how well you understand our kōhatu. Remembering that in different areas of the country, there's subtle little differences, there's nuances right throughout. Same with the reo. Nuances and subtle differences, so long as you know those things, and you get to know those things. If you don't, you can still get to work within those spaces just as well as you would your own. Okay, now look, a little bit more on the traditional unity. Still, we don't want to talk too much around traditional unity in the north because the area is not ready. But again, Tuakana teina needs to be strengthened here. And if we're teina, we need to learn to be a bit more humble in the north. Okay? If we are Tuakana, be careful. Be careful that our kōrero that we're sharing hitika tawa kōrero. And if we don't have the right kōrero, then get to Tuakana there too. Okay? Get to speak with them. Get to hear their kōrero. And then take your mark from there. Know that that your directions could only go the right way, and so the way that you lead your people or your teina could only be the right way. Okay, that's fine. That's probably about all, and I think the tikanga me te kawa goes without saying. But that has to apply within any area of the law. I know we don't, a lot of our people around the place, we tend to not have the same respect for law in general. We need to have that. We need to have that. Because that was the way of our Tupuna. We weren't law-breaking people. But we were not law-breaking people, and we should not have started to be. Because that's made us look terrible right across the motu. Okay? And if we can become unified once again within concepts like that, concepts of the law, some of the biggest, most important primary concepts, priority of generations and generations and generations of our ancestries, right back to the ancient times. One of the major priorities of life in general. Now, they carried the same thing, they had laws. Okay? I know what's turned us negative is a lot of this crown, the crappy law of the crown. Let's put that bluntly. Let's put that in plain English. Crap. Crown has one law, Pākehā have another law, that's mainstream. And then we might get a law if we're lucky. Okay, so Look, whether or not we like it, this is the way of our tupuna. Have respect for law. Doesn't matter whose law it is, where it is, respect that. Because at the end of the day, other people need to respect yours as well. So that's all of that kōrero. I'm becoming more aware. I'm running late now. I didn't realise that was the time, and time was flying by. But I'm just wondering, can I leave our kōrero there so I don't keep running over time? It's okay. If you just catch the kōrero for the TeTaiTokerauAukatiTai, and I'll bring in the kōrero for Te Kuraia Warua. I mainly mentioned the major kōrero there for Te Kuraia Warua anyway, and exactly what was left for the literary devices for MaakeiiKouMei. But yeah, I can say that for Te TeTaiTokerauAukatiTai. And if you want to hear those, just have a listen through to Te TeTaiTokerauAukatiTai. The Kuraia Warua there, that's going to be one of the ones that we will have up running. So we'll have a lot more to kōrero about there. So it's probably a good thing to leave the kōrero for Te Kuraia Warua there. And also take MaakeiiKouMei there as well. Okay? But we've come a long way in the north. We need to be proud of that. Ngapuhi has come a long way too in the north, but they need to go the whole hog. So it's a good idea that their leadership has held them up where they want to be, because massively advantageous to do that and just have a good look at the space that they're in. Because actually what they'll find is that they're in the most advantageous space they've ever been in, regardless of all these different ngā kōrero kua kawenei e matana. Yeah, I know it can be he ua noiho, and it can be tough. He tino whawhai ki te uatu, ki te toki e ratu āhiotanga, because they're so different, very, very difficult to adapt to different kōrero like that when it comes up so different like that. And especially if it's kōrero from our Tuakana. And when you check it out, kai te tika ngā Tuakana, kai te tika rātai. And when it gets to that point, it's even worse for you. But you have to adapt. You have to fold where you have to fold. As Tina, you have to. And if you haven't learned that humility, then you have to learn that first, and then adapt. Whakaiti. Whakaiti koe I a koe. That's really what needs to happen. Be aware, some of those of us who do have leadership roles and who have Tuakana roles, where you're going wrong, if you are. Where you're not leaders, but you are actually Tuakana and you have that leadership role, but you're not the chief, so to speak. Best for you to know your space, lead where you need to, start everything off, initiate everything, and then let the chiefs go. Let the chiefs do their stuff. That's why they're chief, because they know their stuff. Okay? Be they teina o Tuakana. Chiefs, rangatira. Amokura, amorangi, ahorangi, all those sorts of people. Rangatira, they are people that are there for a very, very good reason. Be they teina o Tuakana, they still have their role to to play. You've got to let them do it. You can't cut in. You can't cut in. As soon as you cut in, no te mea rahu ki kai te he koe, me te he o tōu, kokoti atu, kokoti ake atu ki roto, ki te mea nei, o rātau, pēna, tuakana nei o roto i a rātau, pou ārahi. You can't do that. Let them do their job. Okay? And, so, yeah, well, I just think, because it's been such an enjoyable quarter, I've really enjoyed our space for us to finish on, because I think that that's a good space for us to finish on, because I think that Ngapuhi are in a very, very good space, very, very advantageous space, if they just harness all that goodness out of what they've got and take it forward and all get in there together and walk forward in there. I think they will come out of this a lot stronger for having done that, rather than just relying on things that aren't going to bring them anything. You know, like all those things they can't evidence, all those things they haven't got any rock solid taonga tikiho to support them and sources from te ao kōhatu. Me mea, kai te ngaro e rā mea. Me he mea hoki, ka reo koutou ure tārewa, e rā mea katoa, e rā taonga o ngā tupuna. You must fold. Me mea te reo. Me mea te reo, ka hure I te tika. You know, so many different examples of the reo where Ngapuhi has made the mistake of trying to I just about forgot to mention that other reo there that Ngapuhi has always made the mistake of, and that is the one where kahungunu becomes kahununu. Kahununu is a kupu that comes from the reo of the muau poko. Okay, that is the reo of the muau poko. Okay, that is not kahununu. Okay, that is the reo of the muau poko. Kahununu is in particular the reo a Hapu of muau poko. Okay. All right. And so let us for the Ngapuhi, I think they should have more confidence in the space that they're in, that they stand to gain so much more than if they go the other way. I don't know what Shane Jones has got cooked up, but I have a funny feeling he wants to stick to what the old Ngapuhi has always wanted to stick to, regardless. And that's a danger zone for Ngapuhi to go. We would like to advise against that, because that is not Tuturu, and because that's going to put them in a more negative space. It won't be so positive, and it won't be so advantageous, because they're going to come up against a lot of conflict, and they're going to end up getting hammered for it. They're going to wind up paying for all of that, because the Hapu iwi that are Hapu iwi in the country are going to grow and grow and grow. Why? Because they're all relying on us. So because we're growing and growing and growing, we're going to continue to do that. So all of the Hapu iwi will continue to do that, and Ngapuhi struggle. Why? Because they're not one. Okay? Ngapuhi will continue to struggle if they follow that example. And that's why we're saying that. That's why we're saying that. Please try to take our advice. Okay? kia kaha tonu, kia manawa nui, but kia mau ki ngā kōrero. O rātau, ko tika nei, e rātau te tiku mai, kia tatau mātau I roto I te wā tonu, tiku ai. You know, e rā kōrero, you know, they're some of the most important kōrero, some of the most priority kōrero for us to listen to and take on board. It's kōrero that comes to us in a moment's notice, and that is kōrero that we need, regardless. Okay, that's the kōrero we need to be listening to. No reire tata mā kanui te mihi atu. Father, Lord, Yeholia, we thank you and praise you for where we have all come to. In this day and age, we have been able to, through you, bring ourselves through some of the most difficult situations from an extinct status we have built up in such a way that we've brought our people into this space that is very, very advantageous for us, but that some of us still struggle to be able to work with and to be able to harness all the good out of that in order to take us forward. Take us forward, Lord. Lead us in what we need to do. Lead us in the ways that we need to follow. And just as you have done, Father, Lord, one of the things I need to thank you for right now is that all of the kōrero that has led us to where we are and the very advantageous position that we hold at the moment in the motu has been because of you. Because of our Tuakana as well, our ancient Tuakana, and even our people today. Tuakana and Teina. You know, they brought kōrero of such amazing guidance, and your word has been a part of that. We thank you for all these things, Father, Lord. Yeholia, we also bring before you the battles of our whanaunga in Israel and the difficulty that our Palestinian brothers and sisters are in at the moment, still under mostly the control of Hamas, which is causing all the mass starvation and the murders over there. Like never before, mighty Father, do the battle for us. Do the battle for us and conquer the enemy over there. And help our Israeli soldiers, help our allies that can get there and who have been able to get there to do the job, free the hostages. And free up Western Asia from the difficulties that it will face in future if the Hamas and the Iranians get control there. And I ask of you all these things, Father, Lord, in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Ka piti hono, ka tātai hono, koutou rā, kia koutou, te mate. Kua riro no atu nei rā koutou. Kruto kia rātau, e tai whangāti ana kia koutou, I ngā hapu. I ngā hapu iwi, I roto I a rātau. Ko rātau anō, e tai tiaki tonu ana I a koutou. Rātau, ki roto kia rātau, ngā tuakana I nā iana. Putāti ki roto kia rātau. I te ao ki nehe, I nā noa. Nā reira haere, haere. Kua hau maru atu koutou I roto I te wānei. I roto I a rātau. Kua hau maru atu I roto I tō tātai mātau. Atua mata nui te rani. I roto I aia I anaringa. Tautiaki I anaringa. I tōna ngā kāu. Tōna miki. Fatu manawa. Fatu manawa. Aroha. Manaki. tautiaki tonu hoki, awhi. Me te whakarahi haere. Haere koutou ki roto ki a koutou. Haere koutou ki roto ki a koutou. Kāputi hono, ka tātai hono. Tātou mātou anō tēnei tātou mātou kuang. Te kāno hiora ki a tātou mātou kuang. Kai te mihi atu. Kai te mihi atu tēnā rā tātou. Tēnā rā tātou Māori ora. A